And the thing is, I do believe there was talk about these things. I believe if we study history, you know, the Confederates were able to shoot pterodactyls, you know, back in the Civil War, and they spread these things out. Anybody can look it up online.
Google it
They
yourself.
spread these things out, and this is a historical fact. So, you know, they spread this thing out, and it's got a huge winglet. It was a pterodactyl they shot. So, of course, these things have been around. Now, they went extinct, obviously, slowly, but surely. And so,
what I'm saying is Jesus wrote a dinosaur to work. That's history. It's in the Bible. How to Train Your Dragon.
Historical facts.
And if you don't believe it, do your own research. Pull up Google. You'll find the picture, I promise.
Oh my god.
Thank you, John Gleason, Godless engineer, for gifting me this beautiful moment. Y'all remember when they tried to cancel Steven Spielberg for posing with an animatronic triceratops animal rights activist?
Back it up.
Hit it from the back.
Cloaca. Historical facts.
Eat my ass, BP. You're down here bailing on the rest of us because you don't want to process your grief and shame like a normal person by drinking and mistreating strangers.
No, Rick. It is you who must nibble my cloaca, or bird asshole.
Everyone knows what a cloaca is.
you know, back in the Civil War, and they spread these things out. Anybody can look it up online. They spread these things out, and this is a historical fact. So, you know, they spread this thing out, and this has got a huge winglet. It's a pterodactyl they shot. So, of course, these things have been around. Now, they went extinct, obviously, slowly, but surely. And so,
Paul Bunyan was sharing some Funyuns with his pet velociraptor.
Whoa.
Oh, you thought it was an ox? Roll back the clock. Let me knock the socks off. Historical facts.
I didn't cut out. You heard me. You a pervert or something? Okay.
What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless Engineer, and I critically analyze apologists' claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Tonight, we're going to be taking a look at Cameron Bertuzzi from Capturing Christianity. He is no longer taking atheism seriously because he has claimed that he's taken a look at all of the arguments for a more Gnostic approach to atheism, or hard atheism, and he has deemed all those arguments to be bad and not supportive of hard atheism. So, as a representative, I feel, of an agnostic atheist, because I am one, I wanted to take a look at his reasoning behind not taking atheism seriously. So that's what we are going to be doing tonight. Volume O. Sorry, my audio seems... Okay, that should be better. It looks like it's better on my little thing. So, if you want to fuck around and find out why we shouldn't be taking atheism as seriously as we do, then please stay tuned. All right, heathens. So this is going to be the last stream for 2024 because, you know, next week is 2025. Yay! 2025 is hopefully not going to suck as much as 2024 did. And I'm not drinking any alcohol tonight, but I am drinking a G Fuel. This is the not sponsored. Crash Bandicoot G Fuel Wumpa Fruit is what it's called, and it's pretty nice. And I'm 40 now, so I gotta take my pills as well. Hold on. With my G Fuel energy drink, I'm gonna take my old person pills. Great. All right, so we do have a full show tonight. We've got some news items to cover. We're not doing War on Christmas anymore, but we are still doing fuck around and find out news, atheist news, and then there's going to be Christian nationalism news. So that's kind of what we're going to be focusing on, kind of going forward, at least for right now. So that's going to be the news segments that we are going to be covering. We also have some comments to respond to. Brocephus finally, got out of his room. He's going to be stopping by to explain some shitty ass science to us. And then we're going to be getting into the review tonight. So if you will, please consider sending in a super chat. If we get 10 or more super chats at the $5 level or the teal level and above, then we will do a special stream tomorrow. It could either be a video review, or I could do a stream where I take calls from y'all. Just kind of depends, but it does mean that we have to get up to those 10 super chats. So if you want to contribute to the review tonight, or contribute to any of the pretext leading up to the review, please consider sending in a super chat. Also, if you're not part of the Skeptic Mafia yet, you can hit that join button down below and you can join the Skeptic Mafia. I'm going to try to get back on track with providing all of the benefits to the Skeptic Mafia, including the Skeptic Mafia podcast and all of that good stuff. We're going to try to get back on track with that for 2025. We've kind of settled down as far as, traveling and all of the stuff that kind of kept us busy in 2024. So we're going to try to get back on track with that. So if you
Tater's gonna Tate.
Yep, Tater's gonna Tate. Mark Rothenbuehler says, super chat. Mustard! Sorry, I added that last bit in, but thank you, Mark. I appreciate you. I have to say, I love that just mustard. It's just great. Anyways, all right. So if you guys are ready, I know I am ready to get to some Today I Learned. Oh yes, I will be doing another stream just before we get into the news segment. I will be going live with Jacob Berman over on History Valley to discuss more about the mythicism as far as like Paul goes and the ascension of Isaiah. No, we're not going to be mentioning that because remember that guy's going crazy about it. So we're going to be talking about all that kind of good shit tomorrow on History Valley. I will be sharing that on the community tab. And if we hit the 10 super chats there, then I will definitely figure something out before that particular stream. So it's not going to be that stream that is the super chat stream. The super chat stream will be something else. So definitely consider sending in those super chats so I can like take calls or review a video or something like that tomorrow. That would be awesome for me to do. All right, so let's get to the news segment, shall we? Today I learned some shit I really prefer not to know. I am a weirdo. You married it. You can't take it back. Yeah. All right. So, first up, we have No Pay Donnie. So, former president and current financial Houdini, Donald Trump, also known as No Pay Donnie, and he's also seen here.
Heard, but donating is not going to make me stop. Fuck me in the asshole.
Yep. It won't make him stop fucking himself in the asshole. That's right. Trickster says, watch a GE with a couple of buddies tonight. A gentleman named Jack and his sister Mary Jane. Ah, damn, got a party going on over there, Trickster. All right, thank you so much for sending in that super chat. But, okay, so, former president and current financial Houdini, Donald Trump, known as No Pay Donnie, and is seen here denying to pay his bills because he's a freeloader looking to extort the American public of any and all funds, is making headlines again for his creative approach to unpaid debts. El Paso is still waiting on a whopping $600,000 from a rally back in 2019, while other cities collectively have been owed more than $750,000. Apparently, they're forming a No Pay Donnie support group, and just recently, Grand Rapids joined that group. It added itself to the list, sending him a bill for $49,000, which kind of pales into comparison to El Paso, as well as some other cities out there that he owes money to. Though at the rate that No Pay Donnie is going, they're more likely to get a signed MAGA hat from him than a check. These cities have ultimately had to write these unpaid bills off as a loss, sticking the American public with the bill. So not only does No Pay Donnie extort his own fan base with shady memorabilia and emotionally manipulated e-begging emails for donations, he is also extorting the American public by not paying his bills. With debts piling up faster than his legal fees, it seems that No Pay Donnie is seems like he sorry, I fucked that up. With debts piling up faster than his legal fees, it seems like No Pay Donnie is getting a head start on running this country just like he does a casino. Straight into the fucking ground. Meanwhile, though, Kamala Harris, who pays for her rallies up front like a responsible fucking adult, is a stark contrast to No Pay Donnie, who not only skips out on event bills, but also sold his voters, a tax plan that will hike their taxes. Then he also shrugged off the skyrocketing grocery prices, that he convinced his fan bases that he was going to drive down. He shrugged all of those off with a casual, it's hard to bring down grocery prices once they've gone up. And then he's also admitted that his tariff policies, again, the things that got him elected, will definitely drive up inflation. So that's your fuck around and find out news today. I hope that you fucked around and you hate this finding out phase, because I know I fucking do. Anyways, that's going to be it for No Pay Donnie today. Next up, conservatives shoot themselves in the foot. Also the dick. Texas, in a textbook case of conservative logic, conservative Christian Republican State Representative Jared Patterson, seen here shitting himself in real time after he shot himself directly in the foot, sponsored a law in 2023 that resulted in the Bible being banned in a Texas school district this year. Apparently, in their fervor to protect kids from dangerous content, the Christian nationalists accidentally booted their own holy book, proving once again that their policies are so poorly thought out, they might as well aim directly at their own feet. Honestly, I agree with the decision, even though it was eventually reversed after a clarifying meeting with the state rep. The Bible contains very inappropriate stories for children, including rape, incestuous rape, child trafficking, Matt Gaetz likes that one, child rape, slavery, child slavery, forced marriages, which are by definition rape. This is the same energy as their bathroom policies targeting trans individuals, which end up forcing people of the opposite gender into bathrooms based on their birth certificates, creating the exact scenario that they claim to be protecting children against. At this rate, Texas might as well just ban irony next, because clearly it's working overtime to do exactly that. And that's it for the dumbass atheist news, or this is kind of a mixture of Christian nationalism and atheist news, but we have something even more Christian nationalisty up next. And that's this jackass again. This is turning into like an odyssey for Ryan Walters here, because he seems to just constantly be in the news for dipshit reasons. Oklahoma State Superintendent Ryan Walters, seen here mentally masturbating while watching an elementary school child's eyes forced open and made to watch various dramatizations of the Jesus story, is in his latest assault on the separation of church and state, have instituted new social studies standards, which are practically begging public school teachers to treat the Bible like it's a foundational document for their textbooks. Basically, what they want to do is whitewash American history like they are Tom Sawyer. And that includes the hard R in this situation. They want to lie to your children about things like the Pledge of Allegiance. They want to poison your child's mind with the idea that God, with the idea of God, and they want to use public funding to do it. While elementary school kids are being pushed to learn about biblical concepts in public schools, because what 8-year-old doesn't need to know, doesn't need to have a bullshit version of American history forced upon them. You can bet that the same folks behind this move would absolutely lose their collective shit if it were the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, or even the adventures of Space Jesus that were being taught in schools instead, or being forced upon their children. That's the Book of Mormon, by the way, if you didn't catch that last part. The hypocrisy is stunning. Indoctrination is fine as long as it's their particular version of their religion. But the second someone starts teaching kids about Ramadan, they'd cry religious persecution louder than a Sunday school choir. If we're serious about morality, maybe we should start by respecting the Constitution that these folks claim to love as much as they love forcing their beliefs on everyone else. Honestly, Ryan Walters can go eat a dick. I hate what he's done to Oklahoma and the Oklahoma public school system, and I hope every single teacher there pushes back against his bullshit, which a good majority of them are, I think. I know that there's a pretty large school district that is pushing back against him, and I would hope that most teachers wouldn't want to push like the story of Esther on children. Or how about Numbers 31 and teaching young girls that they're just plunder for the boys that are sitting next to them. I really hope they don't start teaching them that, but I don't know where this particular slope is going to end. Anyways, I hope this is going to start off your 2025 in a very informative light, but now we've got comments to go to. Are you ready for comments, honey? Yeah? Sorry, I got to get my banjolele here. Comments of the day. Prepare to facepalm yourself in the next week. Dum-dum. It feels like a Terminator thing, but it's like hillbilly redneck. Da-dum-dum, da-dum-dum, da-da-do-do-do. I don't know. Anyways, I can't carry a tune. All right, so we got some comments to go through today. Please just bear with me with these comments here. All right, first up is on a short that I did about Mike Winger being caught lying, and he says, I believe Mike Winger argued in a different video that having a sexual relationship outside of marriage, or possibly a concubine situation, which entailed permanent provision, was already prohibited as adultery, fornication, etc. I understand that Zaz6555. I understand that he might have said that. I don't know. I can't go and check. He produces so much content out there. It's a little hard to do fact checking on fucking Mike Winger. But let's just assume that he has said this, right? Mike would be wrong about that as far as biblically goes, because in the Bible, it doesn't lump concubines or forced marriages in with...
Tater's gonna tate.
Thank you, Limited Light. The Bible doesn't lump those relationships in with adultery and fornication. I mean, there's fornication going on, but they see it as just procuring another wife or procuring a concubine, which there's no provision laid out by God that prohibits those things. So, I mean, he can say those things, but he would be lying about what's in the fucking Bible. Limited Light says, metal comments of the day. Oh, yes, metal comments. I remember you giving me that metal comments of the day thing. I'll have to use that. I got to find it. It's here on my computer somewhere, but I'll definitely find it. All right, next up is this one from my Minimal Mythicism and the Origins of Jesus, my RFRX presentation that I put up here at the end of the year from earlier in the year. So basically this guy says, but Paul, the primary source, believed Jesus was born of a woman, betrayed and killed by Jews, etc. So, yeah, I mean, I get it. that's the line that people use in order to support that Paul thought those things, but that doesn't actually make it true. Paul, at least in the authentic letters, never clearly indicates that it was the Jews that he blamed for killing Jesus. Sorry, I need to fix my shit there. He never portrays it as the Jews that are responsible. He does talk about him being betrayed, and the born of a woman thing is part of an allegory. So there's no way to tell if he's talking about a literal woman or if he's just being allegorical about it. It seems like since it's encased in an allegory and he doesn't really name the woman or anything like that, and later on he says that this is an allegory, like in that same fucking chapter, just a few verses later, he says this is a fucking allegory. He doesn't use fucking, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't think that he was being literal about the being born of a woman. There's also one other place where it talks about him being born in a sense, but the actual words that Paul uses there are more of manufacture rather than human birth. At least that's how Paul uses the word. He uses it for manufacture, and then in other places Paul distinctly uses a different word for birth. So all of those things do not entail that Jesus had to be a physical person on earth. And the reason why this is obfuscated by Paul is because Paul believes that the heavens, like especially the lower parts of the heavens, were corporeal. So like those were filled with real physical things. They were filled with real physical beings that had real physical flesh and blood. So we would need something specific to place Jesus on earth rather than in the heavens. In the heavens, Jesus could still have a physical, fleshly, and blood-filled body. We would just need something that distinctly separates Jesus from that concept and places him on earth. And we just simply don't have that in the Pauline letters. So yeah, you can say this line that's regurgitated by a lot of apologists who are mostly Christian apologists, but that doesn't make anything that you say in it true. All right, this is kind of a long one. I'm going to work my way through it. I might stop here and there to say some things. These episodes get worse. I am a biologist and technician with years of experience. You deny the evidence without justification. There is literally whole phyla that can't be explained by evolution and abiogenesis that can't be derived from just mindless molecules without purpose. All right, Frank Turek clone, I get you. You've seen a lot of his videos, or you've been to a lot of his speeches where he says the exact same thing. I can actually pick out the Frank Turek sounding phrases, and I can know that you listen to Frank Turek and you probably huff his farts out of a champagne glass. I don't care how many of his farts you collect while he's up there on stage. That doesn't mean that you're correct in any of this shit, okay? It really doesn't. Because, like, name the phyla. That's all I have to ask. You're coming at me with these statements about evolution and how it can't be explained, but you're being ambiguous about it. Don't be fucking ambiguous, buddy. This is your big shot right here. I'm reading your fucking long ass paragraph where you barely have any kind of grammar, like grammatical things in there. What are they called? Punctuation. Barely have any punctuation or anything like that. This is your shot to convince me. Give me the phyla. Give me the thing that can't be explained by abiogenesis as a process. You're just being ambiguous right now. All right, so continuing. We have biolabs and design offices for that reason, to design and innovate new medicines or systems. Okay, that doesn't invalidate evolution. Just because we can manipulate nature and cause evolutionary changes, specific evolutionary changes to happen in a species. Like I'm thinking dogs, there's a certain kind of crab that was artificially selected to look a certain way. And then bananas, that's a really good one. Bananas have been artificially selected in order to produce the best kind of bananas that we can eat. Because actual natural bananas that existed out in the wild, they were not edible in at least in the ways that we use them today. They were definitely selected for and bred in to produce a certain kind of banana that we can consume. So yes, just because artificial selection helping evolution along exists doesn't mean that evolution doesn't occur. In fact, it needs evolution in order for those things to happen. If that's even what he's talking about here. Oh, is mine ready over there? Sorry, I'm getting my watch real quick. Oh, it's got dots in the top left corner. Yeah, it should be good. Okay. Yeah. All right. Continuing on, he says, or they say, rather, if we applied atheism to the rest of our lives, nothing would be designed and built. Well, that's not true, because atheism is just not believing in a God, and it has no bearing on engineering or no bearing on really any other facet of life. We just simply don't believe that a God exists. Now, does it have ramifications for a worldview? Sure. Like, I don't get to appeal to a sick maniac that just wants you to cut the animals apart and burn their entrails so that he can get the free smells. Like, I don't have to base my morality on that kind of fucking psychopath. That's all that means. I just have to figure out morality on my own and all these other things. We don't apply atheism to engineering. We don't apply atheism to like other parts of society. Like, that's just not how we would use atheism in this sense. We would leave everything to mindless chaos. No, again, you're talking about science and the scientific process, not atheism. And we wouldn't leave everything to mindless processes, because the natural process to explain like how buildings are built or cars are built or cell phones are built, it's, the natural process is humans doing it. That's the natural process. You're welcome. We'd wait until the rocks and trees fell over to build bridges. No, we just fucking cut them because we understand that we can manipulate our environment. That's the natural explanation that explains that. You're being a dipshit right now. I mean, you started out being a dipshit, but you're continuing the dipshittery. Wait, splash muddy water and hope medicines came out. That's just stupid. And you're just highlighting your ignorance right now. Restaurants would throw dirt and sand into a bowl and hope a pepperoni pizza came out. How does that make sense? No, if using, to even be consistent in his dipshittery here, he'd have to be like, oh, we'd throw yeast in water. And I guess, where does pepperoni come from? Yeah, is it? I have no idea. Well, I know it comes from animals. Like, there's turkey pepperoni, but I was just thinking, like, throw a hog in there. That would be Canadian bacon. What? Pepper. It originated in the United States in the early 1900s. It's dried cured spiced sausage. It's typically made from pork and beef. Okay, interesting. So pork and beef. So throw a cow in there, and then throw a pig in there, and then boom, we got a pepperoni pizza. So I mean, that would be more accurate in it. But in any case, that's also dipshittery. Atheism is a denial of the very evidence that sustains your human body and biological order. Atheism must be madness in light of all evidence for God. Dr. James Zimmerman. Ooh, Zimmerman. I feel like maybe I would change my name after 20 2011 or so. Fuck. Anyways, all right, Dr. James Zimmerman. It kind of seems like you're just freebasing a bunch of creationist bullshit here. There's no reason for us to take you seriously. Everything that you said in your comment here is pure and utter bullshit. You don't provide us with any specifics. You just ambiguously talk about your crazy fucking ideas straight from Ken Ham's asshole, and you end it by signing it Dr. James Zimmerman. It's in your fucking like username. Your username's Dr. James Zimmerman 99. And yeah, I don't know. It seems weird. This is a weird comment, and it's really fucking dumb. All right. Just checking for the super chats. I can't remember if there was one or not. Next up is this dipshit. Why don't atheists have their own language? Why are they always speaking our religious languages? Christians speak English, Muslims speak Arabic, and Jews speak Hebrew. Why atheists are speaking the gods' languages? I'm sorry, Grandpa Cletus. Could you not say this on the internet where other people can fucking read it? Like, seriously. This makes no sense. These are not religious languages. These are just languages. Like, Hebrew is just a language of the Israelites and other Semitic groups. Like, I mean, these are just languages, buddy. And no, not all Muslims speak Arabic, and not all Muslims speak Hebrew. Not all Jews speak Hebrew. Not all Christians speak English, dipshit. I like how he left out Spanish there. What's Spanish? Spanish is part of the love languages. So, like, would he be pissed off from Cupid? Like, quit speaking Cupid's language, dipshit! Anyways, the gods didn't invent language. You would need to actually prove that they did, and you can't just cite a Bible verse with, the Tower of Babel and everything like that. You can't cite that because that never happened. That wasn't true. I do think that the Tower of Babel is a good example of how the people at that time thought of the firmament and the heavens as a real physical place, just like they thought of Hades or the underworld as a real physical place that you could go to. So it's a good example of that, how they thought that thing, but it's not an example of a real historical event, and that's how languages were invented or some kind of shit. That's not how that happened. So yeah. There you go. Finally on the comments, we got Tina! I don't know why I screamed her name. And Tina, she says, people worrying about billionaires controlling everything are those that have low-paying jobs or too lazy to look for decent ones. No, I disagree. I have a decently paying job. I'm fairly well off. Like, as far as like in my life right now, I'm doing great. I'm not lazy or anything like that. I've had to work hard to get to where I am, but I'm still concerned about billionaires being in control of the government, being in control of every facet of our society. I mean, a South African recently almost shut down the United States government because he didn't like some of the things in the continuing resolution. And so he manipulated his little puppet of a president into forcing the Republicans to vote down the continuing resolution they wrote. They created it. They are the ones that came together and was like, this is what we want. And then Trump's like, no, don't do that because my South African little prince over here said not to. And so don't do it. And so he's like, oh, well, shit, you're going to have to tank the thing that you created. Oh, God, this pisses me off so much when people are this fucking dense. Of course, you people couldn't afford to pay off your student loans. I've paid off most of my student loans on my own, like 97%. Still paying them off. Although I did get into like a little thing where somebody paid them off for me, but only like 2%. Or buy a house because all you do is complain. I've bought 3 houses in my life. But yeah, I'm just bitching and complaining about billionaires and I'm lazy as shit. I never had that problem when I paid for my properties in cash. Well, Tina, queen of the meth lab and wherever the fuck Alabama you seem to be from, like, I get it. You can pay in cash. Not everybody works in cash anymore, but also in our current economy, it's a little difficult to get that much cash on hand. Also, I have to ask, when exactly did you pay for your properties? Because if you paid for your properties like in the 80s or 90s or whatever in the fuck, yeah, that was pretty common back then to pay with cash like you're a fucking drug dealer. But nowadays, that's not the case because housing costs are way up. Even rent is way up. Fucking dipshit. Anyways, drug dealer Tina over here paying with her properties in cash. People are just lazy and blame others. Godless engineer is just encouraging lazy behavior. Nope, this was on a post where I was criticizing how billionaires are controlling shit, as you can tell. And so, like, I don't like that fact. I personally don't feel like billionaires should exist in the first place. I think that, you know, there should be appropriate tax brackets that cause people that do make over $1 billion a year to have to pay a little bit more in taxes, you know, so that they can, the U.S. government can help out those that don't have enough, that can't pull themselves up by the bootstraps because they don't have fucking boots to have bootstraps. That's what I care about. I'm not encouraging lazy behavior. I'm just saying, hey, social safety nets are a norm in, you know, developed fucking countries. Why don't we get with the fucking times? That's all I'm saying. I was literally in a conversation recently with a relative where I was, you know, I did sort of a physical representation of that graph of like where the CEOs are making so much more and like the minimum wage is down here and it's like it should be a livable wage. And I literally did this about 3 times directly to their face. Like, I'm just saying, just a little bit. Just move it a little bit up. We're making these people a little bit less rich so that these people can fucking live day to day. And apparently that was a radical thing for me to say. Anyways, interesting comment there, Tina. Good luck on whatever drug adventures you got going on over there, wherever you're located. That's going to be it for the comments today. Are y'all ready for some Brocephus? I know I'm ready for Brocephus. Yeah, Brocephus! Where are you at, buddy? Sorry, I got to get back to... Oh, there we go. Yeah, Brocephus! Shitty ass science! Bring on the answers of science shit really wrong. Oh my god, it's like I've risen from the dead like Christ. Holy shit. How you doing there, Casey?
Hey, Brocephus.
What's up?
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just, you know, chilling out, maxing, relaxing on cool. Shooting some b-ball down by the school.
Yeah?
Yeah, I wouldn't be shooting other things by the school. I'm just saying, like, I know that's a problem here. Yep, just b-ball. I'm not shooting other people. Anyways, all right. What do we got tonight? Hey, what's up there, heathens? I hope you're burning in hell. Anyways, anyone know what sort of bird this is? Yeah, this is a numbing bird. It's a numbing bird, and this numbing bird is actually pretty big, as you can tell. And they feed on sugar water that's hung outside hillbillies' homes, okay? And so basically what this thing does is, you know, the hummingbirds, they flap really fast. Well, this motherfucker, it looks like a horse, like it's got the head of a horse, but the wings have to move even faster. So that guy right there is actually holding his head still, but it's like, it's just flapping its fucking hooves like crazy and everything like that. And he's just, you know, standing out there, and he's gotta feed himself with some of that sugar water. But in any case, yeah, so if you see one of these big old numbing birds out there, definitely make sure you splash some sugar water their direction, because this is the only way in which they ever get any kind of carbohydrates or anything like that. So, you know, yeah, somebody in the chat says that it's a horsefly. Horseflies aren't eating sugar water. Horseflies either bite your back or they eat shit. That's not shit in there, and it's definitely not piss neither. So, you know, it can't be no horsefly because it's eating sugar water. That's why it's a numbing bird. Okay? Numbing bird. Just saying. All right. Well, that's going to be it for me today as far as explaining this shitty ass science stuff. I hope you guys will burn in hell because you're all fucking heathens. If you're a Christian watching, bless the Lord. You know, you gotta, oh shit, remember to bless the Lord. Also, what's this G Fuel shit that he's drinking now? He used to have beer up here for me to, like, steal.
There's beer downstairs in the fridge. You can go get one.
Oh, really? Is it that Bud Light shit? Yep. Oh, god damn it. I'm gonna have to go shoot it or something, because don't we hate that now? This is conservatives. Well, I mean, I'm kind of conservative. Anyways, I'll see y'all. Y'all go to hell, and I'll see you later. Bye, everybody. Receivers, did you tell everybody to go to hell again? Well, yes, they're fucking heathens. That's why they're going to hell. Huh? Yeah, why are you mean there, Bertuzzi? I mean, it's just, I don't make the rules. I just hide behind the Bible. Anyways, I'm gonna go get that bear you keep bogarting down there. Bye, Bertuzzi. Thank you so much for stopping by. You're welcome. Go to hell. Why is he so? I don't know. He's totally affixed with people going to hell. Anyways, so excuse me. Yep, that's not a numbing bird. Although the horsefly was probably better there, Philly. I think it was Philly that said it. Yep, Philly. Horsefly seemed a bit better, but you know, Bertuzzi is pretty adamant about his numbing bird. But in any case, that's going to be it for the shitty ass science tonight. Are you guys ready to get to Cameron's video? I know that I'm ready to get to Cameron's video. You ready? You're like, I'm ready to get this shit over with. I need to get my food. I'm getting hangry. All right, so yes, Cameron posed for the cover thing for his thumbnail so that he didn't have to make a thumbnail. He just used the very first frame. Anyways, all right, so we do have Cameron Bertuzzi tonight. He is going to be telling us why he does not take atheism seriously anymore. And I can guarantee you that you're going to be let down by this, primarily because all of Cameron's arguments are a big letdown. Like, they're notoriously famous over there on Twitter and Facebook for making these 3-point syllogisms that just literally make no sense as far as like putting it together as a syllogism and it proving anything. It just seems like bullshit to me, as well as like, you know, everybody else. So, all right. So yes, Cameron posed for. So sorry, I accidentally hit the sound button over there on the preview thing in the live thing. Okay, so what Cameron's gonna be telling us why he doesn't take us seriously anymore. So can't wait for this bullshit. Oh, before we begin with his bullshit, if you haven't shared out the stream yet, it would really help me out a lot if you did. I don't know if you know anybody, like a fellow atheist that doesn't watch regularly or anything. It would really help out if you hit the share button and you shared it with somebody or just on social media in general. That would be great. If everybody could do that right now, that would be awesome and bring some new people in to interact with. So just something to think about. I normally don't beg for shares, but I figured I'd try.
So roughly 13 years ago, my brother became an atheist. We were brought up non-denominational, evangelical Christians, so this came as quite a shock, as you might imagine. Now, I actually went through my own period of doubt right after high school, but I got over it pretty quickly. Like, I personally doubted whether or not Jesus actually existed, but I had those doubts overcome pretty quickly when I learned that Jesus was actually mentioned by non-Christian historians like Josephus.
Well, okay, so first of all, right here, that shouldn't have convinced you that Jesus actually existed, because there's plenty of pushback against that, especially considering that I'm not sure when he graduated. He said he spent 10 years, and so like if he's been looking into it for 10 years, then, you know, that's definitely when there was a lot of talk surrounding the historicity of Jesus with Dr. Carrier's book getting put out and everything like that. So, I mean, obviously he only looked in a very specific direction if he stumbled across the first reference that he could find, you know, Josephus, and then he was immediately convinced by that and looked no further into the scholarship on Josephus, because I've heard plenty of historicists say now that they won't even reference Josephus just because it's so contested. The reference just simply doesn't help us in the search for whether or not Jesus actually existed. I'm not saying that anybody should be convinced that Jesus did not exist, because Josephus is fraudulent reference. Not saying that at all. There are plenty of other things that you could actually point to. Like, I personally consider Paul to be the best evidence for a historical Jesus. But I mean, I think that speaks volumes towards how bad the evidence for Jesus is. But that's neither here nor there, because you don't have to become a mythicist in order to be an atheist. I think that, you know, personally, I went from, you know, a Christian or religious person in general, a theist, to atheist first, and then eventually I got to mythicism. So I don't think that you have to become a mythicist immediately after leaving religion or Christianity specific. You don't have to immediately become a mythicist, or you don't even have to wrestle with that at first. You can just not believe in a God, or you know, specifically the Christian God. You can become a deist or something like that. Many people do maneuver along that path after leaving organized religion, you know, becoming just a general theist, and then, you know, and then a deist, a theist, deist, and then eventually leaving faith altogether. However you get through it, my point is that you don't have to immediately become a mythicist. So already I can tell that the path that Cameron took out of religion and then back into religion was a very, I guess, maybe fringe path going along, just meaning that not a lot of people, you know, go that direction. Not a lot of people take that particular direction through it. It's more of a it's more varied than he's making it out to be. But this is his own personal journey, so I'm not, you know, trying to shit talk his personal journey all that much. I'm just saying that you don't have to immediately disbelieve in Jesus as a historical figure in order to question the resurrection of Jesus.
So after I learned that he became an atheist, I thought I could overcome his doubts pretty easily, but I was wrong. I was very, very wrong. What's up, everyone? Cam here. In this video, I'm telling you the story of how after 10 years of study, I no longer take atheism seriously. Now, I started this video telling you about my brother, and that's all very relevant to where I'm at now. I used to take atheism very, very seriously, but pretty much the only thing I knew about atheism back then was that a lot of really smart, like, scientists were atheists, right? I had heard the name Richard Dawkins, but I didn't know what he actually said about religion. I just knew that really smart people were atheists. But let's return to...
I think that this is like a really bad reason to be an atheist, or a really bad reason to consider atheism to be viable, because I mean, it's basically saying that, oh, it's a bandwagon fallacy, or it's an argument to popularity, or an argument from authority. So I mean, there's various ways in which this is flawed. So I do think that Cameron, as far as like, you know, when he was an atheist or what convinced him away from his God, at the time, I feel like maybe he did it for very bad reasons. And that's why one of the things that I strive to do for 11 years, actually, I got the notification from YouTube that I've been doing this shit for 11 years now, like on this channel specifically. I had been doing the Facebook page for a little bit longer than that. But I feel like Cameron stopped believing for bad reasons, and because he believed, he stopped believing for bad reasons, he was easily convinced back into the faith for similarly bad reasons.
To the story, okay? After I learned that my brother became an atheist, I decided I was going to meet with him and like crush all of his objections. Okay. This ended up being like the worst idea that I could have come up with. My brother and I met, and it turned out to be literally like one of the worst nights of my life. He raised.
It was one of the worst. You just had a conversation and it was one of the worst nights of your life. I have to see the like 2-hour dramatization of this night of Cameron Bertuzzi being like, I'm going to bring Jesus to him. And then whatever kind of hellscape unfolded that night, I have to be a fly on that wall. I don't know what happened, but if it was one of the worst nights he's ever experienced, that has to be a story that he can make into like a documentary or something.
Objections to Christianity I had never even dreamt of, but that night showed me that I really had no clue why I believed in Christianity. So after that night,
I have to say that kudos to Cameron on this point for going into it expecting one conclusion or expecting one outcome of this conversation and then being totally wrecked by it, and then realizing I really don't even know why I believe. Like, I feel like that does show that he has at least some kind of insight into like the strength of his arguments. Although I feel like now he has kind of a Dunning-Kruger's sort of effect going on as far as the strength of his arguments now. Because I feel like whatever the strength of his arguments were in his conversation with his brother, I feel like they're even worse now. Like there's no way it can be worse than what his arguments are now, because his arguments now are totally bullshit and not convincing whatsoever. So I can only imagine like what were the arguments he was bringing to the table back then.
I started to look into the arguments for and against God's existence. I wanted to know whether or not God's existence was actually reasonable. And after just a few weeks of study, I quickly learned that there are very powerful arguments for God's existence. I found the Kalam cosmological argument.
The Kalam cosmological argument doesn't point to a creator. It only points to an inflationary event, like this universe inflating, and there being some kind of cause for that. And there are a lot of hypotheses out there, which I recently cut together a director's cut of a live stream that we did where I covered a substantial amount of those alternative hypotheses that can explain the inflation of the universe. The Kalam cosmological argument, as it originally exists by Kalam, the guy Kalam that initially came up with it, only points back to a cause for the inflation of the universe. You know, you've got people like William Lane Craig who have since augmented it to specifically point to a Christian version of God. But I feel like that takes a lot of logical leaps in order to get to God. The best that you can do is use Kalam to point out that there was a cause for the inflation. Big whoop-de-fucking do. If you add a quantum physics into it, we don't necessarily need a cause or like a cause to have that kind of effect. The effect could have just happened without a cause. That's due to how quantum theory works and how quantum physics works. You can look that up on your own. So, I mean, like, if you go that deep into it, obviously you don't need a cause. But if you're just looking at a surface level of it, the Kalam just points to a cause for the inflationary event. It doesn't point to anything else. It doesn't point to God. You have to add on a whole lot of logical leaps in order to get to God. And that's why it fails to prove that a God exists. And that's why it doesn't prove that a creator or a theistic version of God is necessary. So, no, that's not strong, Cameron. That's bullshit.
Contingency arguments.
Contingency arguments similarly make logical leaps in order to get to God, and their premises are false. Let me just look up a quick contingency argument. Like, one thing is contingent upon another. He's going to make the argument that the universe is contingent upon an intelligent being causing the universe to come into existence. This would be along the lines of a fine-tuning argument, like this universe is so fine-tuned that an intelligent being is the only explanation for this. Would be kind of along the lines of a contingency argument. But as we have shown through the various physics and the various sciences that are looking into all of this, and just pure probability, we can come to a natural explanation for the universe coming into existence. We don't need an intelligent being in order to explain these things.
teleological arguments from fine-tuning arguments.
Okay, so he's separating those two out. I mean, still the contingency argument. What? Maybe I'm apparently wrong about what the contingency. Let's see. States that since everything in the universe is contingent, meaning that it could not exist and requires an explanation for its existence, there must be a necessary being, God, who is not contingent and explains the existence of everything else. So, yeah, I don't see how, like, this is the logical leap that I'm talking about, is that he can only view this universe as being contingent upon an intelligent being existing and creating everything, and there must be this non-contingent thing. Why can't the non-contingent thing just be reality, or whatever you want to label as reality, like the things that are logically necessary for everything to exist, like at the very base, the logical necessities of reality? That would be this non-contingent thing. Why can't that be it instead of God, like this intelligent being? You're actually adding things on top of this logically necessary thing in order to get to God in the first place, and you're saying that, oh, that's where it starts, is this God being. But I just don't see the evidence for an intelligent being being required. And then, of course, the teleological argument, the fine-tuning thing, is what I thought that he was going with. The contingency argument, I think that the teleological argument can lead into the contingency argument, being that this universe is contingent upon something, that something is God. I think that those things kind of work off of themselves a little bit there. But in any case, the teleological argument doesn't make sense, and we've been able to refute a lot of the assumptions that are made in the teleological argument. So no, that's not powerful. The contingency is not powerful. None of these things are powerful.
From consciousness, moral arguments, and
argument from consciousness. This is the whole idea that consciousness is magical in some kind of sense, and so that we need God in order to explain consciousness. That doesn't actually work. The moral argument, that doesn't work because, well, for one thing, especially on his God is like a moral monster, is a phrase that's been uttered by a lot of different people out there. But the Christian God is not moral, like morally good at all. There's a lot of things that we can recognize in the Bible that is morally reprehensible, and so therefore that means that God simply cannot exist, because he is morally reprehensible, but at the same time he's also the foundation of morality as posed by the moral argument for God. So that doesn't make a lot of sense either. So none of these things are actually strong arguments for God, because we've been able to rationally put them aside as not supporting the conclusion that God exists.
So on. Like, there's actually a ton of arguments for the existence of God. Check out this video, got it linked right here, in which we lay out over 150 arguments for God's existence that show.
You're going to have to actually search Capturing Christianity 150. Well, okay, so he's got our video where we lay out the 150 plus arguments for God. He's got a live link down there, but he does not have like an actual, like, he doesn't have a card or anything, it doesn't seem. I don't see a card, at least, on his video. But he does have a live, a link to a live stream that he did, so maybe I can go through that sometime, but I think it's actually pretty long. Yeah, welcome. Shit. God damn it, Cameron, you're scary. It's over 4 hours long. That's like, I'm gonna spend 10 years just going through that bullshit stream and every argument that they present there for that. That's crazy. Anyways, not gonna do that tonight. We're just looking at this particular one.
Up in the literature. Now, this might lead you to think that this kind of like settles the matter. Like, don't all of these arguments for God's existence prove that atheism is unreasonable?
No, none of them do, because none of them prove that God exists. They're full of logical fallacies as well as unsupported premises, and they require logical leaps to get to God existing. So none of them actually prove that atheism is false, let alone they don't prove that God exists, especially his God.
Well, not so fast. Okay, first of all, every single argument has responses from atheists, and you've kind of got to do the work going through those responses. But secondly, there are also powerful arguments for atheism. Now, the best argument that atheists have, at least that I've found, is the problem of evil.
We'll get to that here in a second. Honey, you think go get some like candy? Yeah. Oh, Buckeye. A Buckeye bomb would be great. Okay. So the all right. So he's talking about the problem of evil. I would say that the problem of evil is good to refute any specific definitions of God that include an omnibenevolent aspect to this God. And it has to be omnibenevolent, but also omniscient, that like everywhere and all knowing. So he's got to have these this tri-omni kind of God, which is what Cameron believes in. Cameron, last I checked, is a Catholic. So like it would definitely refute his idea of God, but it does not necessarily refute God in general. I don't think that you have to, I don't think that the problem of evil should be used for a general idea of God. I think that refuting the existing arguments for a God's existence is the best evidence against God. Like the fact that there are no good arguments that prove that God definitely exists, that is substantial proof for me for atheism, because it's just merely not believing in a God. Considering that there are no arguments that prove that I should believe in God, then that's why I feel so secure in not believing in any gods, especially any of the defined gods that we have.
The problem of evil is so powerful, in fact, that it's led a lot of people to say, look, okay, sure, you've got arguments for the existence of God, but the problem of evil is so powerful that it defeats all of those arguments.
I don't say that. I think that the problem of evil is good evidence against a triune, like a tri-omni God. So I definitely think that God doesn't exist because of the problem of evil. But I think that it's a powerful argument against that definition of a God, but it's definitely not. You have been blessed by Christ. Now go forth and suck my dong. You're okay. Are you taking calls? Let's debate transgenderism. No, Z, we will not be taking calls tonight or debating that topic. I'm not like an expert in that particular realm of biology, for one. For two, I'm not going to dignify that particular topic with a debate, because there is no debate on transgenderism, for one, and for two, transgenderism is not a thing. And if you want to debate transgendered people, I suggest calling Takis on Thursdays over there on the line. There you go. You have been blessed by Christ. Now go forth and suck my dong. Z said, I'm pro-trans, by the way. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to believe that when you say, let's debate transgenderism. I think you're bullshitting me on that point. I'm so sorry for my mouth being full. 1 second. Low blood sugar. 1 second. Yeah, Z, if you want to spend like what, $5 times 7, $35, like in 5 separate things, I'll definitely do a call-in stream tomorrow, and I won't take your call. On that topic, if you want to talk about anything else, I will talk about anything else, but we're not going to talk about that topic. All right. So he's talking about the where we left off was how powerful the problem of evil is, and so let's continue with that.
But you know what? I should probably like pause the story really quickly and just explain what this argument is, just a little bit more in depth, because somewhat counterintuitively, it actually plays a central role in why I no longer take atheism seriously. So first, let me say that this is one of the arguments I've paid the most attention to over the past decade. I've read books, I've watched debates between top scholars, I've listened to lectures, I've watched Joe Schmid, and so on. So to quickly summarize, the problem of evil is an argument against an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-good God. Here's a really common way that it's expressed these days.
Right. I'm glad that he's acknowledging that it's one argument against a very specific definition of God. So this problem of evil argument is only valid against that definition of God. So if you're thinking that the problem of evil is a sort of a one-shot argument against God in general, I would disagree with that. I would say no, that just disproves this one particular definition of God, that God cannot exist. So I do agree with using it in that realm, but as far as like a general idea of God, no, you can't use the problem of evil against a general idea of God.
Premise 1, if God exists, pointless suffering does not exist. Premise 2, pointless suffering exists. Therefore, 3, conclusion, God does not exist.
Well, yeah, but I would say that the problem of this problem of evil is a bit of a straw man, because it's if an all-good, if an omnibenevolent, all-knowing, omnipresent God exists. Like, he's saying God in a very general sense, but he means a very specific definition of God. So this syllogism right here is a bit of a straw man, because it's not actually representing the problem of evil argument, or the argument against God from evil. This particular argument, the problem from evil that he's presenting here, does not actually represent the actual argument.
Both premises in this argument seem pretty plausible. Like, if God did exist, he would probably not permit any pointless suffering. All suffering would have some kind of purpose. The Bible even says that God is working all things toward our good. So premise 1 seems pretty plausible. Premise 2 also seems pretty plausible. Like, just look around a bit and you'll find cases of seemingly pointless suffering. Now, as you might expect, just like atheists have responses to the arguments for God's existence, Christians have responses to both premises in the argument from evil.
Right, they do. Either they will just say that, oh, because God is who he is, that means that this suffering is either a good thing. So like rape is good in this particular argument. Like, some Christians will argue that rape is a good thing, or that there's a good reason for rape or any other pointless suffering that exists out there. Or they will just recontextualize things as if to say that, oh, well, God allows this to happen because of free will, or something like that. Like, they'll try to shift and pivot the conversation to being more about free will and allowing free will, and how allowing free will means that there has to be some suffering in this world, and God allows this suffering because he allows free will to exist, and all this other shit. Like, Christians have ways of pivoting around the problem of evil, but they don't have any good arguments against it. Either they have to agree that God is a shithead that allows these shitty things to happen, or they just have to say, well, God is God and he can do whatever he wants, and since he's the basis of all that is good, if God allows something to happen, then it is good, or he allows it for a good reason. Therefore, you have to make the argument that God allows rape for good reasons. And so you kind of highlight what kind of Christian you're working with, well, I guess theist in this particular situation, what kind of theist you're working with here when you present the problem of evil to them. I think that the problem of evil is a good revelatory thing for who you're talking to, not so much about God existing. I use it as a barometer for gauging the kind of person that I'm talking to at that moment. That's how I use it. I'm not convinced away from a God existing because of the problem of evil, because a God can exist and just be an asshole. But that also means that I'm not going to worship that God, because fuck that guy. Yeah, you dick.
Christians argue that God can allow pointless suffering. Others argue that while some suffering might seem pointless on the surface, it still nevertheless has a purpose. But that's not what I'm doing in this video. Like
Well, no. So it's not just that it has a purpose. It has a good purpose. There's a good reason for it. I feel like Cameron is sort of softening the counter arguments that Christians use here, because he's not pointing out that, you know, there are Christians out there, like scholars even, that say, like his beloved William Lane Craig even says that it's a good thing. God saw it as a good thing to kill little pagan children because they were going to grow up and not worship Yahweh. So it was a good thing for God to have the Israelites kill children in that aspect. So, like, he's really softening how Christians argue around the problem of evil. And I feel like you should be a bit more honest there, Cameron, and actually put out the real counter arguments to the problem of evil instead of this soft blow that you're giving right here. Because this borderlines on straw manning even the responses Christians give to the problem of evil, because you're not highlighting how depraved the responses are.
Wasn't convinced that atheism is silly because Christians have responses to these premises. The reason why I don't take atheism seriously any longer is because even if we accept the atheist's strongest argument, it still wouldn't prove atheism. And now I'm kind of realizing that I probably should have defined atheism a lot earlier.
Oh, great. We're going to get into the let's define atheism kind of fucking bullshit. Okay. Before we get into that, though, the problem of evil is not meant to prove atheism. Like, no arguments against a God definition or any God definition is meant to prove that atheism is true, because that's not how this shit works. Because the burden of proof is not on atheists to prove that atheism is true. We just simply don't believe in your bullshit, Cameron. We don't believe in the bullshit that religious people feed to us. We don't believe in it. We say, where's your evidence? Provide proof that what you're saying is true. And holy shit, if that's not the death knell for fucking God, because you can't do it. You've like, this has been an argument that's been had for the longest time. And you would think if there was such good arguments, if there were knockdown arguments for God's existence, that it would not even be a question anymore. But we're still questioning this shit. There are still people, even more so now than have been in the past, questioning the bullshit rhetoric that religious people feed us. There's a whole community out there now, the deconstruction community, where people deconstruct the bullshit they've been taught their entire lives. And you can see it happening in real time now. So, like, people are questioning this shit even more now. And it's us just asking for evidence. We're just asking for the evidence. And you can't provide us with good evidence. You provide us with bullshit syllogisms that you put on fucking Twitter all the time there, Cameron. That's all that you can provide us. And that right there is the thing that disproves, or at least shows us why we should not believe in God. Because you can't even do the very simple act of proving that God does exist. That's the reason why people should be an atheist, if they are an atheist, because the arguments do not actually prove the existence of God. We don't have to prove that atheism is true. That's not how it works. The burden of proof is not on us. It is on the religious person making the claim that God does exist.
You're on. Well, philosophically, atheism is the view that there are no gods. It's very simple. There's no creator. There's no designer of the universe. We weren't created for some purpose by somebody. Theism, on the other hand, is the view that at least one God exists. So atheism has no gods and theism has at least one God.
Well, that's not exactly true there if you're really wanting to do like this dichotomy here, because atheism would be, you know, no gods, right? But then theism is a personal God. Like the God would have to be personal. You have been blessed by Christ. Now go forth and suck my dong. Christ Crusader, have you read Aquinas' 5 Proofs of God? You should. I have read Aquinas' 5 Ways, and all 5 ways are bullshit because all 5 ways are the basis of all apologetics that we have now. Every single apologetic argument that you can come up with has some kind of basis in Aquinas' 5 Ways. The apologists now are bullshit, their arguments are bullshit, and Aquinas' 5 Ways are bullshit. So yes, I have looked into it. So he's contrasting atheism and theism. Theism is a personal God that has a personal connection to the creatures in his universe, whereas you also have deists that do believe in at least one God, right? But that God doesn't have a personal, like it's not a personal God in that aspect. So like he's totally leaving out deists in this dichotomy. So it makes it almost seem like a false dichotomy that he's presenting here because he's not accurately representing the full swath of them. So atheist, theist, deist, and it just depends on how you define theist. He's defining it as just believing in one particular God, but most theists out there define this one particular God as a very personal God. So it really kind of muddies the waters a little bit because even deists would probably push back on being lumped in with theists. At least that's the experience that I've had online and everything.
But so why doesn't the problem of evil establish atheism? Well, simply because there are many other kinds of gods that it doesn't rule out. The British philosopher Philip Goff is a really good example of someone that adopts a sort of non-standard view of God.
So we're in this situation where the believers are tying themselves up in knots trying to explain suffering. The atheists are tying themselves up in knots trying to explain fine-tuning. When in fact, there are middle ground options that can elegantly account for both of these data points. Consider, for example, the hypothesis of a God of limited power.
Okay, just to interrupt here, this is contrary to what Cameron believes, because while true, you can redefine God to be limited and all these other things, that's not the God that Cameron believes in. That's not the God that Cameron would say the Kalam cosmological argument proves. That's not the God that he would be arguing for in any of his videos or any of his research, right? He would be very specifically arguing that a Catholic version of Yahweh exists, right? That's what he would be arguing for. So him pointing out this guy right here who's like redefining God into this very limited power kind of God and everything, while true, this gets around the problem of evil, and it gets around a number of other counter arguments to some of the arguments for God, but it is a far cry from what Cameron hopes to do in this video. I don't think that this actually helps his argument. In fact, I think that it shows that maybe Cameron shouldn't believe in his Catholic version of God because the problem of evil is still a problem for his version of God. Like, it still disproves his version of God. So he needs to shift to this limited power kind of God who's limited in what he can do, so he can't solve all the suffering, but he solves most suffering and all this other shit. Like, if he wants to do that, fine, but, you know, whatever.
A God who's made the best universe they can. Maybe God simply can't create complex life in an instant. Maybe the only way God can create intelligent life is by creating a universe with the right physics that is eventually going to evolve intelligent life. And God's like, I'm sorry, I know it's going to be messy. This is all I can do. Is this or nothing? I think.
Right. And you can redefine God in that light, but that doesn't mean that you have proof that that God exists. While it's still a possibility, the evidence that we have for a universe just popping into existence on its own, and how multiple universes can do that if it's a natural process, like it's really sad that we have more evidence for that than we do for a God existing. You still have to explain this connection between God and the physics of reality and the underlying things. Like, you can't just throw your hands up in the air and be like, oh, it's easier to explain if we put a magical magician there. Like, that doesn't actually solve anything. That would be an ad hoc statement, like to add on to your hypothesis there, and that just makes your hypothesis weaker. If we look at Occam's razor, the more unsupported or unexplained things that you have to tack onto your hypothesis, the weaker that it gets. And the hypothesis among competing hypotheses that has the least amount of ad hoc statements attached to it is going to be the stronger hypothesis. So the fact that our natural hypothesis doesn't have to require as many ad hoc statements as this God hypothesis does, that makes the natural hypothesis just by definition stronger.
I think this hypothesis can account for both the fine-tuning in terms of God's purposes and the suffering in terms of God's limitations.
So even though God is all good, perfectly benevolent on this view, given his limit in power, there's no way that he can like stop all of the suffering in the world.
Right. And I would agree for that definition of God, that very deistic definition of God, but Cameron's not a deist. Cameron is a theist, in particular, a Catholic. So he can't believe, at least dictated by the dogma of his religion, he can't believe in a limited version of God. He can't believe that God is limited in any kind of way. So like, it's either this video is him proclaiming that he's become a deist now, or he's just trying to pivot this entire conversation over atheism into a shifting of the burden of proof, because Cameron is trying to suggest that atheists need to prove their position when all atheists are saying is that we don't believe you're bullshit, and it's just not going to work. You can't shift the burden of proof onto us. You have the burden of proof. You're the one that's making the claim, specifically the Catholic God, but even if you wanted to go with this very limited version of God, you still bear the burden of proof here. You need to prove that this God exists. And if that's the only kind of God that you could hope to prove to exist, then you need to become a deist there, Cameron. That's just how that cookie crumbles.
I want you to notice here, and this is really important, the problem of evil, which is, once again, one of the atheists' best arguments, doesn't touch this particular view of God that we...
But another straw man there, because nobody has proclaimed this to be the best argument that atheists have. It's proclaimed by Cameron here to be the best argument. It's the best argument that he thinks the atheists have. But it's only like one of the best arguments against his God, and that's the part that he's leaving out.
Just went over. Like, it doesn't touch it at all. Think about it like this. Okay, scientists used to believe that the speed of light was infinite. When we discovered evidence that the speed of light was finite instead of infinite, we didn't conclude that there's like no such thing as light, right? We modified our concept of the speed of light, one of the properties of light. So what I'm saying here is that the best case scenario for the atheist in this argument should really just lead us to revise our view of God. It shouldn't lead us to become atheists.
Right. Sure. Revise your view of God and don't be Christian. Like, that's the point of the argument. Like, Cameron is strawmanning the problem of evil as a way to defeat it. Because what the problem of evil does is it disproves his personal version of God. And I agree, that doesn't disprove God in general, but it definitely shows that you shouldn't be a Christian. So exactly what are you playing at here, Cameron? I don't understand the point in this video in you saying that you don't take atheism seriously, even though the argument that you say is the linchpin for atheism disproves your particular God, because it can't disprove God altogether. You should still be theist in some kind of sense. Like, I guess, just what kind of theist though? Like, you would still argue for Christianity, Cameron. So I guess I really don't understand like what the entire point of this is. 'Cause I mean, I get it. You're trying to convince people that atheism is bunk, right? I got you. I get the point of this, that it's not to be taken seriously because a God definitely exists in Cameron's eyes. But the problem is that we don't have to bear that burden of proof. We don't have to prove there is no God. maybe he's confusing like a colloquial form of atheism with a more philosopher version of atheism, where you say as a Gnostic atheist or a hard atheist that no gods exist. I would be in the more agnostic atheist camp because I don't believe a God exists, but I ultimately don't know if a God exists or not. What I do know, and this is where the nuance comes in my position, is that the Christian version or any defined version of God that we have now simply cannot exist. So in that respect, I am a hard atheist. I would be a quote-unquote philosopher atheist, because arguments like the problem of evil would disprove like Cameron's God, or any denomination of Christianity really, and any God definition that includes the tri-omni attributes. And then if you wanted to go to, religions outside of that, you would just simply have to ask for the evidence for those gods. And once those bits of evidence or those philosophical arguments fall apart, like either through logical leaps that they make or fallacious premises in their syllogisms, I'm sure that you can look to Cameron for the bullshit syllogism stuff. Whatever that looks like, they all end up falling apart and not actually proving that their God exists. And therefore, I don't have to believe in it. So exactly at what point do I have to prove that no gods exist in order to say you don't have convincing evidence that should lead me in the direction of believing in a God, or even what that God wants? I mean, just think about it seriously for a second. Cameron believes in a God that at one point in time required his chosen people to tear out the entrails of living animals and burn them to a crisp in order to appease him. This is the same God that forced small girls into marriages, which the way that they married women at that time was to fuck them. And so that amounts to rape. God endorsed and commanded and condoned raping small girls, little children. That is the kind of God that he believes in. So, I feel like he needs to, put this into perspective here. He's not just talking about some random general-ass God. He's talking about a very specific God that very specifically commits a lot of evil, and therefore the problem of evil definitely proves that he should not be a Christian.
Keep in mind, I'm not saying that the problem of evil is sound or persuasive.
Actually, it is sound, especially if you're working with the tri-omni, God. 2, it is convincing as long as you don't have your nose up William Lane Craig's ass. As long as those two things aren't the case for you, then it's perfectly reasonable, sound, and logical.
I think there are many good responses to the problem of evil, like the soul-building theodicy. I'm saying that even if we...
I should have looked this up before because I heard him say it. Soul-building theodicy. I wonder what that is. Maybe it was the soul-making theodicy is a theory that explains how evil and suffering can exist in the world while still believing in God. It's based on the idea that evil is necessary for humans to develop their moral character and become good people. My question would be, why is God limited in his power that he can't just make good people in the first place? That would be my response to the soul-building theodicy. You're automatically making an argument that your God is limited in power. I don't understand why you would do that. If God is supposed to be omniscient, right? Is that the right one? What's the all-powerful one? Yeah, I think it's omniscient. No, that's knowing everything. Omniscient is knowing everything. What's the omnipotent? Omnipotence. God is all powerful and has the ability to do anything, right? Okay, so omnipotent. I don't know why I blank on the tri-omni stuff. I should know this thing by now. I've been doing it for 11 years, 12 years, 13, whatever. I don't know. Been a long time. Omnipotent. he's basically making the argument that his God is not omnipotent at this point by saying that the soul building theodicy can explain why God would allow suffering. If he thinks that's a strong argument, then that's an argument that disproves his idea of God. So again, at every point in this video, it seems like Cameron is making a sound logical argument for you to not believe in his God. The fuck are you doing? I'm not saying that if you're not Catholic or if you're not Christian, then you should be an atheist. You can believe in any number of religions out there or be deistic about it, right? That's fine. I don't care. But the point is that the arguments that Cameron says are strong in favor against atheism, they only actually prove that his God doesn't exist. Because a sound, logical, reasoning person shouldn't both believe in the Catholic version of God, or the Christian version of God, rather, and the soul-building theodicy. Like, those two things I feel like are in conflict, because you can't be omnipotent but also have to use suffering in order to make people moral.
Grant it. Hypothetically, if we grant it, it doesn't come anywhere close to even establishing atheism. Something else important I want you to notice is that this same
yet again, which I know he does this several times throughout the video, but I feel like it's important to point it out every time it happens. This is a shifting of the burden of proof. He's trying to shift the burden of proof on atheists, saying that we have to prove that God doesn't exist, when that's not how anything works. We don't have to prove that God doesn't exist, because we're not making an active, positive claim, unless you want to take the claim to be, you know, your God doesn't exist. I can prove that Cameron's God doesn't exist, and I can prove that anybody else's very specific definition of God doesn't exist. If you're just going to pose like a general idea of God, then yeah, I would be agnostic about that. But like for Cameron's version of God, Frank Turk's version of God, William Lane Craig's version of God, anybody's, I don't know all of the like Muslim apologists on this. Any Muslim apologist, anybody of any defined religion out there, I can show you how your God does not comport with reality and therefore does not exist. I can do that. But if we're going to be talking about a generalized version of God, then sure, I'll be agnostic about it. I don't know, but I don't believe it until you prove it to me. And that's how the burden of proof works. I'm not making the claim that your generalized bullshit version of God doesn't exist. I'm saying I don't believe it. Why don't you convince me? Provide me with the evidence, and then I'm making arguments against that evidence. Like, I'm explaining to you why your evidence doesn't prove your point. That's what I'm doing. It's not me taking on the burden of proof. You still have the burden of proof there, Cameron.
Same cannot be said of arguments for God's existence. Like, if we grant that the arguments go through for God's existence, then they would actually prove that at least one God is real. So the move that I'm making here by like hypothetically granting their argument is not available to the atheists. They can't hypothetically grant the arguments for theism. Instead, they just sort of have to trust that every argument for God's existence fails, even
No, I don't have to trust that it fails. I understand the arguments and I understand why they fail. Like, he's making it out to be sort of a blind faith situation, that like atheists just simply don't know the arguments, don't understand the arguments, and don't know why the arguments fail. That's the assumption that he's making there, but it really just makes him look like a dick, because he's straw-manning the atheist position and saying that, oh, well, they're just ignorant of the arguments, and that's the only way that they can not be convinced by these arguments. And that's a bullshit straw man.
the ones they've never heard of, which is actually kind of a giant leap of faith if you think about it. All right, now just...
Right, atheists don't have to have a giant leap of faith because we understand the arguments and why they fail. That's not a leap of faith. That's just using your fucking mind. That's using your logical and logic and reason in order to understand why the argument fails. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand why Cameron's syllogisms are bullshit.
So I'm not misunderstood. Here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that Christians should think that God is limited in power. I'm not saying that we have to make this move, okay?
Oh, but the arguments that you're presenting as far as like defeating atheism, or at least where atheism falls short, says that you shouldn't believe in those things. It says, like, all of those arguments say that you should not believe in your particular version of God there, Cameron. You're in a really weird position there. And I ultimately don't know what the point in this fucking video is. To show how ignorant you are? I mean, that's a weird flex, bro.
What I'm saying is that the atheist's best argument doesn't come close to establishing atheism. Not even close.
Because they're not meant to establish atheism. We don't have to establish anything other than your arguments do not support your conclusion. That's the only claims that we make where we have to support them. And atheists for many, many years, like if not tens of years, hundreds of years, have shown how these arguments do not actually prove the conclusion. So, like, this is nothing new under the sun. All of this shit has been said before. So, like, I still don't know what your point is here, other than shifting the burden of proof onto atheists, which makes no sense.
So even if we grant the atheist's strongest argument, it does not support atheism. The most it would do, again, hypothetically, is cause us to revise our view of God.
Okay. Revise your view of God, stop being a Christian, and just be a deist there, Cameron. I feel like that's the argument that you've made here, because the problem of evil is still a problem for your God. You can't use the soul-building theodicy in order to explain the problem of evil, because that means that you're accepting that your God is limited in power. And you can't do that and hold to a triomni God. It's that simple. Like, this is, like I said before, this is not rocket science. You don't have to have 2 engineering degrees like I do in order to understand why this argument's bullshit.
That's it. And this is a huge reason why I no longer take atheism seriously. I should also mention that this is just one reason why I no longer take atheism seriously. If you'd like to see more reasons, check out my recent live stream with David Wood, where we break down Alex O'Connor's embarrassing debate against Cliff Netchtel. So
I mean, I haven't seen that particular debate, so but I doubt that Alex O'Connor was bad in the debate. I mean, he you know, I have my disagreements with Alex, but as far as like I guess a more atheism centered debate, I probably wouldn't have a lot of disagreement with him. But I doubt that he did bad against Cliff. Cliff is a bad apologist in general. And my guess is that Alex probably owned him in that debate. Just saying, haven't seen it, but from the outset, I would say that he probably got owned. But, you know, the fact that you actually go live to talk about how true theism is or how true your God is with a known psychopath, I mean, I don't know. I've always felt weird about David Wood. David Wood has always rubbed me the wrong way, and I feel like maybe 5 years down the road, like we're gonna see him on like an episode of Very, Very Scary People or something like that. Like we're definitely gonna find out some weird shit about him, and it's just not gonna be good. That's the feeling that I get from David Wood. But in any case, I doubt that you know, there was anything revelatory in your live stream there, Cameron.
It appears that David Wood and I are actually in complete agreement on this, which is pretty cool. Oh, and then Christianity is true.
Would love for you to prove that Christianity is true. But none of the arguments that you provided actually prove that Christianity is true. In fact, I would say that the arguments that Cameron provided in support of God, they are really only used for a general idea of God. And I definitely think that Cameron has a bit of a contradictory view there with having the soul-building theodicy and thinking that that explains or that circumnavigates the problem of evil. I don't think that it does that at all. Like, I think that it compromises Cameron's dogma. And that Cameron probably shouldn't believe in a triomni God if he thinks the soul-building theodicy explains something like about why suffering exists. I think that the truly honest answer, or at least maybe not honest, I'll say the truly accurate answer that any Christian can give if you believe in the Christian dogma It's just that God, being the moral lawgiver, whatever he says is okay and good to do, that makes it okay and good, or he has a good reason for allowing whatever suffering that he's talking about. So you have to, but just by the very definition provided by the Bible, you have to argue there's a good reason for rape to happen, and there's a good reason for the genocide of people. You have to argue that there's a good reason for the atrocities that we see in the world. You'd have to make those arguments, and those would be hard arguments to make. And I think that it would reveal a lot about the person that's making those arguments. And I feel like that is the truly factual and logical and reasonable position to take as a Christian, which is sad. I mean, I think that definitely puts Christians in a very weird position there of having to affirm these atrocities, that they have good reasons for those atrocities. But I mean, that's what the dogma entails. So, yeah. Anyways, I'd love to hear your comments down below on Cameron's video tonight. If you will, please go down below and let me know what you think about it. What do you think about any of the arguments that he presented? Do you think that he's just shifting the burden of proof onto atheists unnecessarily? Or do you think that Cameron's onto something here? Do you think that atheism shouldn't be taken seriously? Let me know down below in the comments. And while you're down there, why don't you smash that like button and subscribe if you like this kind of live stream. And don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens. But don't go, because we have the Skeptic Mafia. Skeptic Mafia has maybe some comments. I haven't checked. I try to be very fresh with the comments that people can leave on this, and so I don't look at them before the stream, and I give you my honest reactions to the comments from the Skeptic Mafia. So, booyah, 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 booyah. Anyways, that's just me being creepy and weird, apparently. I'm not weird. Okay, thank you. All right. First up is Command Cyborg, cut off a little bit there at the very top. But Command Cyborg says, "Hello, world!" So the PoE doesn't rule out all kinds of gods, just the triomni kind, like most Christians use. Therefore, atheism is ridiculous. Nice God of the gaps you have there, Cameron. Yeah, that's actually, I didn't pick that up, but now that you mention it, he is using a lot of the God of the gaps. There's gaps in our knowledge, and he's using God to fill those gaps. Would be a pity if you just declared it not even maximally good, powerful, and knowing, would it? Now, would it? You sure you want it hiding in that particular hole? Because if so, I have questions. Or you're a pre-supper and not worthy of being taken seriously. Good night, world! Transmission terminated. Thank you there, Command Cyborg. I appreciate you. Next is Trickster! Trickster says, let's get this out of the way right from the start. The problem of evil is not the best argument atheists have against the belief in God. The best arguments atheists have against belief in something is a lack of tangible evidence. Yes, I maybe didn't say that as explicitly as I should have in the actual live stream, but the best evidence against any God existing is the fact that there is no evidence to conclude that there is a God that exists. That is the best argument against theism, and I think that is the best argument for why anybody should be an atheist. I'm not saying that anybody should. I mean, come to your own conclusions. I'm just saying that if you're going to be an atheist because there's no good reason to be a theist or of any religious persuasion. There's no good argument that successfully concludes and proves that God exists. So that's what I would say. If you are going to tell someone they have a unicorn in your garage, you are probably going to get this question next. Can I see it? This guy would no sooner believe that you have a unicorn in your garage as I would have in his claim of a god or gods. True. The magical pink unicorn.
A small portion of this donation went to beer.
Fuck yeah, it did. Well, it says liquor in the thing. would be liquor, actually. I'll get to the super chats soon. I'm not sure how many are left in our goal, but if you want a stream tomorrow before my stream with Jacob Berman, definitely send in those super chats and I will get to them directly after this. I hope y'all seen how he slipped in that incorrect definition of atheist so that he could try to shift the burden of proof. Yes, I did notice that. He tried that all throughout the video, shifting the burden of proof and misdefining like what atheism is or who atheists are. Of course, he's more of a philosopher, so he's only taking the hard atheists as being atheists and everybody else is agnostic. So like, that's where he, like, for me, he would place me as an agnostic because I don't know whether or not a God exists. He's going to totally, reject this notion that I just don't believe in God. And he would say, okay, but that doesn't make you an atheist. So I don't know how they actually argue that other than taking a very hard philosophical route. He has to do this because he has no proof to back up his argument. If instead he spent the last 10 years talking to atheists and not reading probably biased material, he would be better prepared to relate what atheists actually believe or not believe and why they believe or not believe things. Simply ask them to explain how they came to the conclusion that a God or gods exist, and if they can, show you the evidence they use to make their decision. I hope that we can find someone who has a new or at least a compelling point to make me think about for more than a second. I want someone to challenge me with some sort of evidence that cannot be debunked as quick as it is presented. Is there no one who can challenge me? Is there no one who can challenge me? Thank you, Trickster. I appreciate you. Limited Light says, see you tonight. And then we got Mark Fernkoff, who says, he's more honest than most Christian apologists. That's not saying much, but it's saying something to his credit. Yes, you should have defined your definition of atheism first, since it's not the actual definition of atheism. Atheism is not a... So sorry, 1 second, everybody. Okay. DoorDash is approaching with our food, but we're almost done. Atheism is not the hard stance that no God exists. Atheism is simply a lack of belief in any gods. Furthermore, the problem of evil is definitely not the best argument against God, what you then go on to demonstrate. The problem of evil is only a problem if you believe in a triomni, all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-loving God. You decide to defeat the problem of evil by making your God very, very limited in power, sort of deistic God, who started the universe as a science experiment and just sort of fucked off. So the problem of evil has brought your God down to deism. That's your conclusion? I think it's far simpler to acknowledge the fact that the God of the Bible is not a loving God. If you believe in the Bible, then the problem of evil isn't a problem because you believe in an evil God. The God of the Bible is an evil asshole. Seriously, can anyone think of any character in reality or fiction ever that is more evil than the God of the Bible? You can't do it, can you? The greatest evidence against an existence of God is the fact that there is no good evidence for the existence of any God, nor any good reason to believe in the existence of any God. If you have good evidence or good reason to believe in the existence of any God, then fucking present it. The time to believe in something is when you have evidence to believe in it. It really is that simple. Anyways, I got to get back to door dashing. As always, I love and worship the gorgeous goddess Candy Black. Probably time to be getting ready for bed, Henry. Still riding the high of the new Doctor Who episode we got to enjoy on the 25th. Later, heathens! Thank you so much there, Mark. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate y'all. Ernie Matthews says, you showed his only point was under his hair. I guess that would be his little, his like widow's peak or whatever. Like, I got a widow's peak right here. My shit goes into like a point almost. I don't know. It's time for me to actually shave or something because I'm getting a lot of white hairs coming in. Yeah, I'm gray. Anyways, that's gonna Gleason the Gray. Anyways, I am, that's it for me tonight. I hope that you guys enjoyed the show. And if you will, please go down below. Let me know what you thought about tonight's live stream. What did you think about Cameron's video? What did you think about the Skeptic Mafia comments? What did you think about the news items or any of the comments that we read off and responded to tonight? Let me know what you thought down below in the comments section. And while you're down there, why don't you smash that like button and subscribe if you like this kind of content. And don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens. So sorry.